My name is Miranda Thompson, and I'm 58 years old. 8 months ago, my son kicked me out of my own bedroom and made me sleep in the garage. Last week at Thanksgiving, he brought his pregnant mistress to dinner and demanded I serve her before his own wife. But what he didn't know was that I'd been recording every conversation in that house for months. When I finally played those recordings in front of our entire family, the truth that came out destroyed everything he'd built on lies. Before I tell you what happened that night, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely connect with this story. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Let me take you back to where this all started, to the day my husband died and left me vulnerable to the two people I trusted most. Robert's death came without warning. One moment he was laughing at breakfast, the next he was on the kitchen floor, his coffee cup shattered beside him. The paramedics said it was a massive stroke, quick and painless. I held his hand in the ambulance, but he was already gone. Brett and Jessica arrived at the hospital within minutes, their faces masks of concern. My son wrapped his arms around me, and for a moment I felt safe. "We're here for you, Mom," he whispered. "We'll take care of everything." And they did. Brett handled the funeral arrangements while Jessica managed the flowers and reception. They were so efficient, so caring. When Brett suggested they help with the finances, just temporarily while you grieve, it seemed like a blessing. I was drowning in paperwork I didn't understand, forms Robert had always handled. "Mom, you're in no state to deal with banks and lawyers right now," Brett said 3 days after the funeral, his hand gentle on my shoulder. "Let me hold on to Dad's documents for safekeeping. Jessica can handle the monthly bills. You just focus on healing." I watched him take the key to our safety deposit box, sliding it onto his keychain with practiced ease. Something flickered in Jessica's eyes. Satisfaction? But grief clouded my judgment. These were my children, essentially. Brett had been 12 when Robert and I married. I'd raised him. Surely I could trust him. "Just until you're feeling stronger," Jessica added, patting my hand. Her wedding ring caught the light, the ring I'd helped Robert pick out for their engagement. "We're family. This is what family does." I nodded, too exhausted to argue, too broken to notice how quickly Brett pocketed the key, how Jessica was already eyeing the mahogany desk where Robert kept our important papers. The house felt so empty without Robert's laughter, his off-key singing in the shower, his terrible jokes over morning coffee. I thought having Brett and Jessica close would help fill that void. I had no idea they were already planning to push me out entirely. 2 months after Robert's funeral, Brett knocked on my bedroom door at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday night. "Mom, we need to talk about the sleeping arrangements." I was sitting in bed, holding Robert's pillow. It still smelled faintly of his cologne. "What do you mean?" "Jessica's pregnant." He didn't smile when he said it. "We need the master bedroom for the nursery. It's got the ensuite bathroom, more space for baby furniture." My heart should have leapt at the news of a grandchild, but the way he said it, like a business transaction, made my stomach turn. "But this is my room. Robert and I—" "Mom, be reasonable." Jessica appeared behind him, her hand on her still flat stomach. "You're just one person. You don't need all this space. The guest room is perfectly fine for someone your age." Someone my age. The words stung more than a slap. I was 58, not 88. "We've already ordered the crib," Brett continued, stepping into my room uninvited. "It arrives Thursday. We'll help you move your things tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" I stood up, Robert's pillow falling to the floor. "Brett, this is my home. You can't just—" "It's just temporary, Mom." But his eyes were already measuring the walls, planning where things would go. "The baby needs a proper nursery. You understand, right? You always said family comes first." Jessica was already opening my closet, assessing. "We'll make sure you're comfortable in the guest room. It's actually cozier, more suitable." I wanted to scream, to demand they leave, but Brett had Robert's stubborn jaw, that same set when his mind was made up, and I was so tired, so lost without my anchor. Maybe they were right. Maybe I didn't need so much space anymore. The guest room bed was narrow, the mattress thin, but at least I could still hear Robert's voice in the walls. The guest room lasted exactly 3 weeks. I came home from grocery shopping to find my clothes in boxes by the garage door. "Oh, good, you're home." Jessica didn't look up from her laptop at the kitchen table. "Brett's moving your things to the garage. I need the guest room for my home office. Tax season's coming." "The garage?" My voice cracked. "Jessica, that's not a bedroom. That's where we keep the lawnmower." Brett emerged from the hallway, carrying my jewelry box, my mother's jewelry box. "We've set up a nice space for you out there, Mom. Got you a space heater and everything." I followed him through the laundry room to the garage, my legs shaking. He'd pushed Robert's workbench against the wall and set up a camping cot in the corner. A single bare bulb hung overhead. The concrete floor was cold even through my shoes. "This is insane," I whispered. "Brett, I'm your mother." "The garage has heating, Mom. You'll be fine." He set my jewelry box on a card table he'd positioned as a makeshift nightstand. "Besides, it's quiet out here. You're always saying you need peace to grieve." Through the small window, I saw Dorothy, our next-door neighbor, watering her roses. She looked up, caught sight of Brett carrying my rocking chair, the one I'd nursed him in, to the garage. Her face went pale. She started walking toward us, but Jessica appeared and waved her away with a bright, fake smile. That night, I lay on the camping cot, listening to the water heater cycle on and off. The garage smelled of motor oil and fertilizer. At 2 a.m., something scurried across the floor, a mouse probably. I pulled the thin blanket over my head and bit my pillow to muffle my sobs. Robert would have never let this happen. But Robert was gone, and I was sleeping next to trash cans in the house we'd bought with our wedding savings 30 years ago. Living in the garage had one advantage. Brett and Jessica never came out there. After 2 weeks of humiliation, I started using the time to sort through Robert's boxes, the ones he'd kept on the metal shelving. That's when I found the manila envelope, tucked behind old tax returns. My name was written across it in Robert's careful script. Miranda, just in case. Inside were bank statements I'd never seen, all recent, showing large withdrawals I didn't recognize. $5,000 here, $8,000 there, all transferred to an account in Brett's name. The date started 3 months before Robert's death. My hands trembled as I found a sticky note in Robert's handwriting. "Confronted B about the money. He says it's for investments. Something's not right. Changed the will last week. He doesn't know. Keep yourself safe, my love." Changed the will? I'd seen Brett file paperwork after the funeral, assumed it was Robert's original will. But if Robert had changed it... At the bottom of the envelope was a business card for Smith & Associates, estate attorneys, with a handwritten note. "Miranda has the original. Brett doesn't know." Suddenly, the past months took on a sinister shade. Brett's quick arrival at the hospital, his eagerness to handle the paperwork, the way Jessica had watched him pocket the safety deposit key. I heard a car door slam. They were home. Quickly, I shoved the papers back into the envelope and hid it under the camping cot. But as I did, something else caught my eye in Robert's toolbox. His old digital voice recorder from his insurance investigation days. The thing he'd used to document fraud cases. "Trust but verify, Miranda." That's what Robert always said. Documentation is protection. My son was stealing from me. Had been stealing even before Robert died. And now he was trying to steal everything. I picked up the recorder. It was dusty, but the batteries still worked. A plan began forming. Dangerous, maybe desperate. But it was all I had. If Brett thought he could erase me from my own life, he was about to learn that his mother wasn't as helpless as she looked. Tomorrow was Sunday dinner. The whole family would be gathered around the dining room table under that hideous decorative turkey Jessica insisted on displaying year-round. Perfect. Sunday morning, I woke at 4 a.m. Brett and Jessica wouldn't be up for hours. They slept late on weekends, confident in their control. I crept through the dark house like a thief in my own home. The dining room table was already set for dinner, Jessica's prized decorative turkey centerpiece presiding over the china. It was hollow, I realized, lifting it carefully. The bottom had a felt base that could be removed. Robert's recorder was small, about the size of a deck of cards. I'd tested it the night before. It could record for 48 hours straight on one memory card. The microphone was sensitive enough to pick up whispers from across a room. I nestled it inside the turkey, securing it with museum putty I'd found in Robert's supplies. A test whisper from my position by the china cabinet. Testing, 1, 2. Later, in the garage, the playback was crystal clear. For the next 3 weeks, I developed a routine. Every Tuesday and Friday, while Brett and Jessica were at work, I'd retrieve the recorder, download the files to an old laptop Robert kept in the garage, then reset it. They discussed everything at that table: finances, plans, their frustrations with me. The first recording made me vomit. Brett laughing about how pathetic I looked in the garage. Jessica suggesting they could have me declared incompetent if I showed any signs of confusion. "One little slip," she said, "and we can get power of attorney." But it was the fourth recording that changed everything. "The old bat still doesn't know about the house transfer," Brett said. I heard papers rustling. "Once we get her signature on this, we're golden." "How?" Jessica asked. "She's not stupid enough to sign her house away." "She is if she thinks it's something else. Medicare forms, insurance updates, whatever. Mom never reads what she signs. Dad trained her to just trust." My blood turned to ice. Then Brett said something that made me realize this was bigger than theft. "Ashley's getting impatient. I promised her we'd have our own place by the time the baby comes." Ashley? Baby? The recorder kept running, capturing Jessica's sharp intake of breath, her confused, "What are you talking about?" But Brett just laughed and changed the subject. The next recording destroyed any remaining illusions about my son. Tuesday night, Brett thought Jessica was at her book club. He called someone from the dining room, his voice soft and intimate, in a way I'd never heard him speak to his wife. "Hey, baby. Yeah, she's gone. No, Ashley, I told you. The divorce will happen after we get the house sorted. The baby needs a real home, not that cramped apartment. How are you feeling? Still morning sickness?" I sat on my cot in the garage, the laptop balanced on my knees, listening to my son promise this woman, this pregnant woman, my house, my home with Robert. "Jessica's just temporary," he continued. "She was useful for her credit score and her dad's connections, but you're my future. You and our baby. Yes, I know you're 4 months along. I'm counting down the days, too." 4 months. Jessica had lied about being pregnant to help steal my bedroom, while Brett's actual mistress carried his child. The cruelty of it took my breath away. Over the next week, I captured more. Brett met Ashley for lunch, came home reeking of her perfume. Jessica noticed, of course she did, but Brett gaslit her brilliantly. "You're imagining things. You're stressed about tax season. Why would I cheat when we're trying for a baby?" The recordings revealed their twisted dynamic. Jessica knew about the plan to steal my house, but not about Ashley. Brett knew Jessica would never stay if she discovered the affair, and he needed her until the property transfer was complete. They were using each other, and I was just collateral damage. But I wasn't helpless anymore. I had evidence. The question was, what to do with it? That's when I remembered Sarah Smith from my volunteer group at the library. She'd mentioned once that she was an estate attorney before retiring. We'd bonded over widowhood. Her husband had died 2 years before Robert. I still had her number in my phone. My hand shook as I typed, "Sarah, this is Miranda Thompson. I need legal help. My son is trying to steal my house. I have proof. Can we meet privately?" Her response came within minutes. "Coffee tomorrow, 9 a.m., the diner on Oak Street. Come alone. Bring everything." For the first time in months, I felt something other than despair. It felt like hope. The diner on Oak Street was busy enough that no one would notice 2 older women having coffee. Sarah was already there, wearing a sharp blazer that reminded me she'd been a formidable attorney before retirement. "Miranda." She stood and hugged me, then studied my face. "You look exhausted. Living in the garage?" I nearly dropped my coffee. "How did you—" "Dorothy called me last month. She's worried sick but didn't know how to help without making things worse." Sarah pulled out a legal pad. "She saw Brett throwing your things out there. That's elder abuse, Miranda. It's a felony." I pulled out the USB drive with the recordings. There's more, so much more. For the next hour, Sarah listened to key clips, her face growing stonier with each revelation. When Brett's voice talked about forging my signature, she stopped the playback. This is criminal conspiracy, fraud, elder abuse, and attempted grand theft. She looked at me over her reading glasses. Miranda, we can destroy him. Legally, thoroughly, and publicly. But you need to be prepared. This will get ugly. It's already ugly. I sleep next to garbage cans. Sarah reached across and squeezed my hand. First, we need the original deed to your house. Is it in the safety deposit box Brett has access to? No, Robert kept copies there, but the original is in a separate box at First National. Robert was paranoid about backups. Smart man. Get it tomorrow. Also, any documentation of the home's purchase, mortgage payments, insurance, everything showing you and Robert as owners. She slid a business card across the table. This is my colleague, still practicing, but I'll handle your case personally, pro bono. Sarah, I can't ask you to... You didn't ask. I'm offering. Nobody treats my friends like this. Her eyes flashed. We're going to get your house back, and your son is going to learn what consequences look like. Getting to the bank without Brett knowing required careful planning. I told him I had a doctor's appointment. Routine checkup, nothing serious. He barely looked up from his laptop, just grunted approval. First National Bank's safety deposit box vault felt like a sanctuary. The key Robert had hidden in his toolbox still worked. Inside box 447 were our lives in paper, the original deed, mortgage satisfaction documents from 2018 when we'd finally paid it off, Robert's will, the real one, dated just 2 weeks before his death. I photographed everything with my phone, then carefully read Robert's will. He'd left everything to me, with Brett getting inheritance only after my death. But there was a clause I hadn't expected. Should my son, Brett Thompson, attempt to coerce, manipulate, or defraud my wife Miranda of her rightful property, he forfeits all inheritance rights. Robert had known. Somehow, he'd known. At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope marked, "For Miranda. Open only if Brett betrays you." My hands shook as I opened it. My darling Miranda, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and Brett has shown his true colors. I've watched him become someone I don't recognize, greedy, calculating, cruel. I changed the will after discovering he'd been siphoning money from our accounts. The forensic accountant's report is included. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you better. Use this. Fight back. You're stronger than you know. All my love, Robert. The forensic report showed Brett had stolen $73,000 over 2 years. Each transaction meticulously documented. Robert had built me a legal weapon, and he'd done it while dying. I made copies of everything at the bank, put originals in a new safety deposit box only I could access, and mailed a sealed copy to Sarah's office. Walking back to my car, I felt Robert's presence so strongly I nearly turned around. "Trust but verify," I whispered to the empty parking lot. "I'm verifying everything, my love." The explosion came on a Wednesday evening. I was in the garage, headphones on, reviewing the latest recordings when I heard the actual screaming through the walls. "How could you do this to our family?" Jessica's voice, raw and broken. I crept to the door connecting the garage to the laundry room, cracking it open. Jessica stood in the kitchen, holding Brett's phone, her face streaked with mascara. "Who the hell is Ashley? And why is she texting you ultrasound photos?" Brett's face went white, then red. "You went through my phone?" "Your mistress called while you were in the shower. She's having your baby, Brett, your baby!" Jessica hurled the phone at him. It shattered against the refrigerator. 4 months pregnant. 4 months! "Jessica, listen. I've been taking fertility drugs for 2 years. 2 years. Crying every month when the tests came back negative, thinking it was my fault." She laughed, bitter and sharp. "But you've been fertile enough, haven't you? Just not with me." Brett tried his usual manipulation. "You're overreacting. Ashley means nothing. It was a mistake." "A 4-month pregnant mistake?" Jessica grabbed a plate from the counter and smashed it on the floor. "I lied to your mother about being pregnant to help you steal her house. And this whole time you've been—" "Keep your voice down!" Brett grabbed her wrists. "Mom will hear. Your mother is sleeping in the garage like a dog because of us." Jessica wrenched free. "I'm done. I'm so done with this." She stormed toward their bedroom, my former bedroom. Brett followed, pleading, threatening, bargaining, but I heard the suitcase zippers, the drawers slamming. "You can have your knocked-up girlfriend," Jessica spat, "but I'm taking half of everything, including this house you're so desperate to steal." "You wouldn't dare. Try me. My father's lawyer will eat you alive." I slipped back to my cot, my heart pounding. The alliance between them was shattered, but Jessica was still dangerous. She knew about the fraud, was complicit in it. Would she expose Brett to save herself, or would they unite against me to protect their crime? Either way, the recordings kept running, capturing every word of their collapsing marriage. Jessica didn't leave. For 2 weeks, they lived in Arctic silence, and I recorded it all. Then, the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, Brett made an announcement at dinner. "We're hosting Thanksgiving this year, the whole family." Jessica's fork clattered on her plate. "Excuse me? I've already invited everyone. Aunt Linda, Uncle Paul, the cousins. 25 people confirmed." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "And I'm bringing a special guest." "You wouldn't dare," Jessica whispered. "Mom," Brett turned to me, dismissive. "You'll cook, won't you? Do that turkey you used to make, the one with the cornbread stuffing." I was standing by the sink, washing their dishes like hired help. 25 people is a lot of food, Brett. "You've done it before. Besides, what else do you have to do?" He stood, patting his stomach. "This will probably be your last Thanksgiving in this house anyway." Jessica's head snapped up. "What does that mean?" "Oh, didn't I mention? I've been in contact with Sunset Manor. They have an opening next month. Very affordable." He looked at me with cold eyes. "It's time Mom got the care she needs." Sunset Manor. I knew that place, a run-down facility on the east side where people went to be forgotten. My hands shook as I dried a plate. "You can't just put her in a home," Jessica said quietly. "She's not incompetent." "Not yet." Brett pulled out a folder. "But Dr. Harrison is willing to evaluate her. 1 or 2 episodes of confusion, and we can make the case for power of attorney." The recorder in the turkey was getting every word. Dr. Harrison, Brett's golf buddy. They were planning to have me declared mentally incompetent. "After Thanksgiving," Brett continued, "things will change around here. For everyone." He looked between Jessica and me, master of his domain, but he'd just made a crucial mistake. He'd given me a deadline and a stage, 25 witnesses for what I was planning. "I'll make," I said quietly, "a Thanksgiving dinner no one will ever forget." Dorothy knocked on the garage door at 6 in the morning, 2 days before Thanksgiving. She'd never done that before. "Miranda, I can't stand by anymore." She pressed a USB drive into my hand. "My doorbell camera faces your driveway. My security system saves everything for 90 days. "Dorothy, there's video of Brett bringing strangers to the house when you're gone, men in suits with briefcases. One time they had papers spread on the hood of your car, signing things." Her voice dropped. "And there's footage of him dragging your furniture to the garage, laughing about it with someone on the phone." I clutched the USB drive like a lifeline. "Why are you—" "Robert was a good man. He helped my Harold fix our roof for free when we couldn't afford it." Dorothy's eyes were fierce behind her thick glasses. "And last week, I heard Brett on your porch telling someone you were circling the drain and would be out of the picture soon." The phrase chilled me. Did the camera catch that? Crystal clear audio, time-stamped, legally admissible. I asked my nephew, he's a paralegal. She squeezed my shoulders. "Whatever you're planning, Miranda, I'm your witness. I've been documenting everything since they put you out here." I hugged her, this 80-year-old warrior in a housecoat. "After Thanksgiving, everything changes." "Good. That boy needs consequences." She paused at the door. "Oh, and Miranda? That young woman he brings over when Jessica's at work? The pregnant one? I have video of that too. Multiple visits." Sarah would want to see all of this. Between Robert's documents, my recordings, and Dorothy's surveillance, we had enough to bury Brett. But I needed him to confess publicly, in front of the family. Thanksgiving was in 48 hours. Time to prepare the feast and the finale. If you've ever felt powerless in your own home, you know exactly how I felt in that moment. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones who hurt us deepest. If this story resonates with you, Please hit that like button. It really helps others find these important stories. Now, let me tell you about the Thanksgiving dinner that changed everything. Thanksgiving morning arrived gray and cold. I'd been cooking since 3 a.m., not just the turkey, but everything from scratch. Pies, rolls, casseroles, the works. If this was my last stand, it would be memorable. The 20-pound turkey sat on the counter, golden and perfect. But the star wasn't the bird. It was what I'd hidden inside the decorative turkey centerpiece. Not just the old recorder, but a new one Sarah had given me, with wireless capability that could stream directly to my phone and, if needed, to the smart TV in the living room. Sarah had also prepared documents, cease and desist letters, elder abuse reports, and a lawsuit ready to file. They waited in a folder hidden behind the flour canister, along with printed screenshots of the most damning recordings. "Smells good in here," Brett said, startling me. He never came to the kitchen anymore. "Like old times." "Yes," I agreed, basting the turkey, "just like old times." He watched me work, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the boy he'd been, helping me roll cookie dough, licking the beaters. When had that sweet child become this monster? "Mom, after today, I want you to know it's nothing personal. It's just business." "Business," I repeated, not trusting myself to say more. "The house is too big for you. Sunset Manor will be better. Safer." He actually sounded like he believed it. "You'll thank me eventually." I turned to face him, memorizing his face. "Brett, do you remember what your father used to say about consequences?" He frowned. "What?" "Every action has consequences. Some just take longer to arrive." He laughed, uncomfortable. "Getting philosophical in your old age?" Jessica appeared in the doorway, dressed impeccably despite the dark circles under her eyes. "People will start arriving at 3. "And your special guest?" Jessica's voice could have frozen water. "Ashley will be here at 3:30. He smiled cruelly. "Be nice, Jess. She's carrying the baby you couldn't give me." Jessica fled. Brett whistled as he left. And I returned to my cooking, checking that my phone was fully charged, the TV remote accessible, and the recordings queued up. This year's turkey would indeed be unforgettable. By 3:15, the house filled with family. Aunt Linda and Uncle Paul arrived first, bearing wine and questions about why I looked tired. Brett's cousins came next, kids in tow, chaos and laughter temporarily masking the tension. I watched from the kitchen as Brett played host in the living room, all charm and confidence. Jessica sat rigid on the couch, her smile painted on, wine glass already empty. "Where's Miranda?" Cousin Marie asked. "I haven't seen her since Robert's funeral." "Mom's in the kitchen," Brett said smoothly. "You know how she loves to fuss over the meal." "Shouldn't we help her?" "She prefers to work alone, gets overwhelmed with too many people." The lies flowed so easily. At 3:30 exactly, the doorbell rang. Brett jumped up, straightening his tie. Jessica's knuckles went white around her second glass of wine. Ashley walked in like a deer entering a wolf den. 26, blonde, visibly pregnant, wearing a dress that emphasized her bump. She was pretty in an innocent way that made the situation even more grotesque. "Everyone," Brett announced, "this is Ashley Martinez, my colleague from work. She didn't have anywhere to go for Thanksgiving, so I invited her to join us." "Colleague," Jessica muttered into her wine. Ashley waved shyly. "Thank you for having me. Brett's told me so much about his family." Uncle Paul looked confused. Aunt Linda's eyes darted between Ashley's belly and Jessica's face. The cousins exchanged glances. The room crackled with unspoken questions. "How far along are you, dear?" Aunt Linda asked, because someone had to. 4 months, Ashley beamed, then seemed to realize her error. She means 4 months until her promotion," Brett interrupted, shooting Ashley a warning look. "Big changes coming at work." Jessica stood abruptly. "I need air." The stage was set, the players in position. Time for the performance to begin. "Dinner's ready," I announced from the doorway, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Everyone filed into the dining room, the table groaning under the weight of food. Brett, ever the orchestrator, directed seating. He placed Ashley to his right in what would traditionally be Jessica's seat. Jessica ended up at the far end, by the children. I began bringing out the last dishes, the massive turkey taking center stage. Brett stood, raising his glass for a toast, when Ashley touched her stomach and winced. "Are you all right?" Cousin Marie asked. "Just hungry," Ashley said softly. "The baby's been active today." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Brett, then Jessica, then back to Ashley's obvious pregnancy. Brett didn't miss a beat. "Mom," he called to me as I stood by the kitchen door. "Serve Ashley first. She's eating for 2 now." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Jessica's wine glass shattered in her hand. She'd been gripping it too tight. Blood mixed with Merlot on the white tablecloth. "Oh my God, Jess!" Aunt Linda rushed to help. "I'm fine," Jessica said, but tears were streaming down her face. She stood swaying slightly. "I'm fine. I need—" She ran from the room. We heard the bathroom door slam. "Mom," Brett said again, harder now. "Ashley needs to eat. The baby needs nutrients. Serve her first." 23 pairs of eyes turned to me. The room was so quiet I could hear the recorder in the decorative turkey humming almost imperceptibly. Uncle Paul cleared his throat. "Brett, what the hell is going on?" "Nothing's going on. Mom's just being slow as usual." He looked at me with those cold eyes. Probably confused again. You know how she gets. That was it. The moment he'd given me. He'd just suggested I was mentally incompetent in front of the entire family. "Of course, son," I said calmly. "Let me get the turkey. I have something special planned." I walked to the turkey, picking up the carving knife. "You know, Brett, your father always said that truth, like turkey, is best served in front of everyone." My hand moved to the decorative turkey centerpiece. I carried myself with the dignity Robert would have wanted, my back straight despite months of sleeping on a camping cot. Every step from the kitchen to the dining room felt like walking toward my own execution. Or Brett's. The carving knife gleamed in my hand as I approached the table. Brett smirked, already victorious in his mind. Ashley looked uncomfortable, her hand protectively over her belly. The family watched in confused silence, the tension thick enough to carve alongside the turkey. "Before I serve anyone," I said, my voice carrying the authority of 30 years as mistress of this house, "I want to say something." "Mom, just serve the food," Brett snapped. "I've been serving this family for 3 decades. I've cooked thousands of meals in this kitchen. I've hosted every holiday, every birthday, every celebration of life and mourning of death." I set the carving knife down deliberately. "I served you all while sleeping in the garage for the past 3 months." Gasps rippled through the room. Aunt Linda's hand flew to her mouth. "What?" Uncle Paul stood. "Miranda, what are you talking about?" "Ask Brett," I said calmly, moving toward the decorative turkey. "Ask him why his 60-year-old mother sleeps next to the lawnmower." "She's confused," Brett said quickly. "This is exactly what I was telling Dr. Harrison about. Mom's been having episodes." "The only episode here is yours, son." I placed my hand on the decorative turkey. "You want me to serve the truth? Very well." The room held its breath. Jessica appeared in the doorway, mascara-streaked, wine-stained, watching with hollow eyes. "You know what your father always said, Brett? Trust, but verify." I looked him dead in the eye. I've been verifying everything. My fingers found the hidden latch in the decorative turkey's base. I lifted the decorative turkey and turned it over. The felt base came away, and I pulled out the digital recorder, holding it up for everyone to see. "What is that?" Ashley asked, genuinely confused. 8 months of truth, I said, watching Brett's face drain of color. Every conversation at this table, every plan, every lie, every betrayal. Brett lunged forward. "Give me that!" Uncle Paul caught him by the shoulder, shoving him back into his chair. "Sit down, Brett. Let your mother speak." "This is insane." Brett struggled against Paul's grip. "She's lost her mind. It's nothing." "Then you won't mind if we all listen." I connected the recorder to my phone with practiced ease. Sarah had made me rehearse this 20 times. The Bluetooth speaker Jessica had installed for dinner music would serve a different purpose tonight. "Mom, Please. Brett's voice changed, wheedling now. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly. I scrolled through the files on my phone, finding the folder labeled November 15th. Let's start with something recent, shall we? Brett's recorded voice filled the room. The old bat still doesn't know about the house transfer. Once we get her signature on this, we're golden. Jessica's recorded reply. How? She's not stupid enough to sign her house away. She is if she thinks it's something else. Medicare forms, insurance updates, whatever. Mom never reads what she signs. Aunt Linda gasped. The cousins looked horrified. Ashley's face had gone pale, her hand pressed to her mouth. That's taken out of context, Brett stammered. Context? I swiped to another file. Let's add some context then. Brett's voice again from a phone call. Ashley, baby, I told you, Jessica's just temporary. Once I get Mom's house transferred, we'll have our own place. You and me and our baby? Yes, I know you're 4 months along. The divorce papers are ready. Ashley stood up so fast her chair tipped over. You said you were already divorced. You said she was your ex. Jessica laughed, sharp, bitter, broken. Surprise, honey. I'm the wife he's been lying to for 7 years. Let's make this easier for everyone to hear, I said, moving toward the living room. The TV has better speakers. The family followed like a funeral procession, Brett trapped between Uncle Paul and his cousin Michael, both contractors who didn't tolerate nonsense. I connected my phone to the smart TV, technology Jessica had insisted on installing, now serving justice. The first video clip was from Dorothy's security camera, Brett dragging my rocking chair to the garage, laughing on his phone. Yeah, Mom's in the garage now, like a dog in a kennel. She actually thanked me for the space heater. Aunt Linda started crying. Robert would be spinning in his grave. Next clip. Brett meeting with a man in a suit in our driveway, signing papers on the hood of my car. The timestamp showed it was during my doctor's appointment last month. That's my colleague from Sunset Manor, Brett's recorded voice explained to someone on the phone. Mom's going in after Thanksgiving. I've already got Dr. Harrison ready to declare her incompetent. Dr. Harrison, several family members knew him from the country club. Uncle Paul pulled out his phone, typing furiously. There's more, I said, queuing up the worst one. This is from last Tuesday. Brett and Jessica at the dining table, not knowing they were being recorded. Jessica. Your mom's not stupid, Brett. She'll figure out what we're doing. Brett. She's old and broken. Dad's death destroyed her. Besides, who's going to believe her over us? We're successful, stable. She sleeps in a garage. Jessica. Because you put her there. Brett. Because we needed her out of the way. Don't pretend you weren't part of this. You wanted that house as much as I did. Jessica. I wanted a house. I didn't want to destroy your mother. Brett. Same difference. After Thanksgiving, she's gone. Sunset Manor, maybe a year or two before she croaks, and everything becomes ours. Well, mine, once I dump you for Ashley. The room erupted. Ashley was sobbing. Jessica had pulled out her phone, calling someone. Her father's lawyer, from what I could hear. The cousins were shouting at Brett. And Brett? He sat there, finally silent, watching his carefully constructed life collapse like a house of cards in a hurricane. Those recordings are illegal! Brett finally found his voice, standing despite Uncle Paul's restraining hand. You can't record someone without their consent. Actually, I said calmly, in this state, you can record in your own home. And despite your best efforts, this is still my home. You manipulative old... Choose your next words very carefully, son. Uncle Paul's voice was dangerous. You're already in enough trouble. Brett looked around wildly, seeking allies and finding none. Even Ashley had backed away from him, her arms wrapped around her pregnant belly. Fine, he exploded. Yes, I wanted the house. Do you have any idea what this place is worth? $2 million. $2 million. And she was just sitting on it like some ancient dragon on gold. It's my home, I said quietly. Mine and Robert's. Dad's dead, Brett screamed. And you were supposed to follow him. You're old, useless. Why do you need a 4-bedroom house? Why do you need anything? The mask had finally slipped completely. This was my son's true face, twisted with greed and rage. I gave up my career to raise you, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was breaking. I loved you through every mistake, every failure, every crisis. And I'm tired of being grateful, Brett laughed bitterly. You think I owe you something because you did what mothers are supposed to do? You think this house should just sit here, wasted on one old woman, when I could sell it and actually live? What about my baby? Ashley spoke up, tears streaming. You said we'd raise our child in a real home. There is no we, Jessica screamed. He was never leaving me for you, you stupid girl. He needed my credit score and my father's connections. Brett turned on both women. You're both pathetic. Jessica, you couldn't even give me a child. And Ashley, you think you're special? You were just convenient, young, dumb, and fertile. The slap came from Uncle Paul. It knocked Brett back into his chair, blood trickling from his lip. Robert was my best friend, Paul said quietly, and you're a disgrace to his memory. Brett wiped the blood, looking at me with pure hatred. So what now, Mom? You win? The doorbell rang with perfect timing. I'd texted Sarah when I started playing the recordings. That would be my attorney, I said, moving to answer the door. Sarah Smith entered with 2 police officers, her presence commanding despite her small stature. She surveyed the scene, Brett bleeding, Ashley crying, Jessica on the phone with lawyers, the family in various states of shock. Mrs. Thompson, Sarah addressed me formally. Based on the evidence you've provided, we're here to file charges of elder abuse, fraud, and attempted grand theft. This is ridiculous. Brett stood, but Officer Martinez stepped forward. Sir, please remain seated. Sarah pulled out a folder. I have here documented evidence of systematic elder abuse, including forcing Mrs. Thompson to live in a garage, attempted fraudulent transfer of property, and conspiracy to have her declared mentally incompetent without cause. She's not incompetent? Ashley asked in a small voice. Far from it, Sarah said. Mrs. Thompson has been methodically documenting crimes against her for 8 months. That takes remarkable presence of mind. Uncle Paul handed his phone to Officer Martinez. I just spoke to Dr. Harrison. He's willing to testify that Brett offered him $50,000 to declare Miranda incompetent. He refused and documented the conversation. Brett's face went from red to white. I want a lawyer. I want a... That's your right, Officer Martinez said, pulling out handcuffs. Brett Thompson, you're under arrest for elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. As they cuffed my son in front of his pregnant mistress, his sobbing wife, and our entire extended family, he looked at me one last time. I'm your son, he said, as if that should mean everything. Yes, I replied, and that's what makes this so much worse. Jessica stepped forward as they led Brett away. Miranda, I'm so sorry. I knew it was wrong, but I thought if we just had the house, he'd be happy. We could start our family. You're a victim too, I said, and meant it. But you were also complicit. That has consequences. After the police left with Brett, Jessica collapsed into a chair, her perfect composure finally shattered completely. The family gave us space, migrating to the living room with murmured conversations and shocked whispers. I have documents, Jessica said quietly, pulling a flash drive from her purse. Everything Brett did, the forged signatures, the fake power of attorney forms, the communications with Sunset Manor. I kept copies of everything. Why? I asked, sitting across from her. Insurance. I knew if things went bad, he'd throw me under the bus. She laughed bitterly. I just didn't expect him to have a pregnant girlfriend ready to replace me. Ashley, who'd been silent in the corner, spoke up. I didn't know he was married. He told me you were his ex, that the divorce was final. He showed me papers. Fake ones, probably, Jessica said. He's good at forgery. I watched him practice your signature for hours, Miranda. I studied both women. One complicit but betrayed, one innocent but carrying my grandchild. Jessica, you'll need to testify. I know. My father's lawyer is already working on a plea deal. I'll get probation if I cooperate fully. She met my eyes. I'll also sign whatever you need to restore the house entirely to your name. And I want a divorce. I want full custody of—" She stopped, remembering she had no children with Brett. "What will you do?" I asked. "Start over. Maybe somewhere far from here." She stood, gathering her purse. "I'm staying with my parents tonight. I'll have movers come for my things tomorrow, if that's okay." I nodded. "Jessica? For what it's worth, I think you were a victim too. He manipulated everyone." Her eyes filled with tears. "I wanted so badly to be part of a family. My parents, they have money but no warmth. You and Robert, this house, it felt like home. I let that blind me to what Brett really was." She left quietly, dignity salvaged, if not intact. Ashley remained, looking lost. "Mrs. Thompson? What do I do now?" "First you eat," I said, standing. "You're still pregnant, and stress isn't good for the baby. Then we talk about your options. You don't hate me? You're carrying my grandchild. That's what matters now." Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what truly matters. If you're finding value in this story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps me share these important stories about standing up for ourselves. Now let me tell you how justice was finally served. The family gathered in the living room, the abandoned Thanksgiving dinner growing cold on the table. One by one, they approached me with apologies, support, and shame. Aunt Linda was first, tears streaming. "Miranda, we failed you. We should have noticed. Should have asked why we never saw you at family gatherings anymore." "Brett always had excuses," Uncle Paul added. "You were tired, you were grieving, you preferred solitude. We should have pushed harder." Cousin Marie hugged me tight. "When Mom died, you were there every single day. You cooked, you cleaned, you held us together. And we couldn't even check on you after Robert died." "Brett was convincing," I said, but they weren't having it. "No excuses," Paul said firmly. "Family protects family. We failed that basic test." Michael, the contractor cousin, pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my crew. We're moving you back into your bedroom tonight, and tomorrow we're converting that garage back to its proper use." "I can't ask." "You're not asking. We're doing." He was already dialing. "And we're installing a security system, real security, with cameras you control." The younger cousin started a GoFundMe for my legal fees. Within an hour, it had raised $10,000. The description read, "Help Aunt Miranda fight elder abuse and reclaim her life." "We're also starting a rotation," Marie announced. "Someone will visit you every week. No more isolation." "And Sunday dinners," Linda added. "At my house until you're ready to host again. If you ever want to host again." Uncle Paul sat beside me, taking my hand. "Robert asked me to look after you if anything happened to him. I promised him I would. I broke that promise, Miranda, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." "You didn't know." "I should have known. That's the point." He squeezed my hand. "But I'm here now. We all are. Brett may have taken months from you, but he's not taking another day." After the family left, Ashley and I sat in the kitchen, sharing turkey sandwiches. The elaborate dinner had gone untouched. She was young, scared, and 7 months away from single motherhood. "I'm keeping the baby," she said quietly, even though everything was a lie. "That's brave," I said, meaning it. "My parents will help. They're disappointed but supportive." She touched her belly. "This baby didn't ask for any of this." "No, they didn't." I poured her more milk. "Ashley, I need you to know something. Regardless of what happens with Brett, this baby is my grandchild. You'll both always be welcome here." Her eyes filled with tears. "After everything?" "You were lied to, same as me. Worse, actually. You're building a life on those lies." I reached across the table. "But if you're willing, I'd like to be part of this child's life." "I have texts," she said suddenly. "Hundreds of them. Brett promising marriage, divorce papers, a future. My lawyer says they're evidence of fraud. He got me pregnant under false pretenses." "Keep them. Use them if you need to." I paused. "Will you file for child support?" "Yes, my baby deserves that much." She stood to leave, then turned back. "Mrs. Thompson, Brett's baby will be lucky to have you as a grandmother, to learn what real strength looks like. After she left, I found myself in Robert's study, Brett's office now, though not for long. On the desk was a photo from Brett's 5th birthday. Robert was lifting him high in the air, both of them laughing. I'd taken that photo, remembered the joy of that day. Where had that little boy gone? When had greed replaced love? I kept the photo. Somewhere that child still existed in my memories, untainted by what he'd become. The next 3 weeks blurred together in a haze of legal preparation. Sarah Smith transformed my dining room into a war room, documents spread across the table where Brett had planned my disposal. The prosecutor is charging him with elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy, Sarah explained. With the recordings, Dorothy's videos, and Jessica's testimony, it's airtight. Dorothy herself had become a regular visitor, bringing coffee and fierce loyalty. "I've been keeping notes for months," she said, producing a notebook. "Every time he brought strangers over, every time I saw you carrying groceries to the garage. It's all here, dated and detailed." The forensic accountant Sarah hired found more than we'd expected. Brett had stolen $127,000 over 3 years, not just the $73,000 Robert had discovered. He'd opened credit cards in my name, taken loans against the house, sold Robert's tools and golf clubs. He was hemorrhaging money, the accountant explained. Gambling debts, mostly. He owed some dangerous people. That explained the urgency, the desperation to get the house. The media picked up the story. Local woman, 58, documents own elder abuse, ran in the city paper. Suddenly I was getting calls from other seniors facing similar situations. Sarah suggested I consider advocacy work later, when you're ready. Brett hired Marcus Wellington, the city's most expensive defense attorney. "He's going to claim emotional distress," Sarah warned. "Say that grief over his father made him act irrationally." "For 8 months? I know, it's ridiculous, but Wellington is good at creating doubt." Jessica's lawyer contacted us. She'd agreed to full cooperation in exchange for probation and community service. She's also filing for divorce and asking for nothing. Clean break. Ashley's lawyer was building a separate civil case for fraud. He promised marriage while actively married. That's textbook fraud in the inducement. The trial was set for 3 weeks out. Sarah prepared me for cross-examination, for Brett's lawyer trying to paint me as confused, vindictive, or mentally unstable. "Remember," she said, "you have the evidence. Let it speak." The night before the preliminary hearing, I couldn't sleep. I stood in my bedroom again, thanks to Cousin Michael's crew, and stared at the ceiling. "Give me strength, Robert," I whispered. "Just a little more strength." The courthouse was packed. Elder abuse cases rarely got this much attention, but the recordings had gone viral after someone leaked them online. I recognized reporters, advocacy groups, and dozens of seniors who'd reached out with their own stories. Brett entered in an expensive suit, his attorney Wellington beside him. He didn't look at me, keeping his eyes fixed ahead. He'd lost weight in jail before making bail, his face gaunt. Judge Patricia Hoffman presided, a stroke of luck, according to Sarah. She had a reputation for despising elder abuse. "Mr. Thompson," Judge Hoffman began after reviewing the charges, "how do you plead?" Wellington stood. "Not guilty, Your Honor. My client was suffering from complicated grief following his father's death. Any actions taken were not criminal, but rather the result of emotional distress and miscommunication within a grieving family." The prosecutor, ADA Jennifer Chen, snorted. "Miscommunication? We have 8 months of recorded conspiracy, Your Honor. We'll argue those recordings were obtained illegally." "In her own home," Chen interrupted. "Mrs. Thompson had every right to record in her own home, where she was being forced to live in a garage." Judge Hoffman raised her hand for silence. "I've reviewed the preliminary evidence. Mr. Wellington, your client is heard on these recordings planning to defraud his mother of a $2 million property. How is that miscommunication?" "Context, Your Honor. Taken out of context." "Then let's hear the context." Judge Hoffman nodded to Chen, who played the worst recording, Brett laughing about putting me in the cheapest home possible and waiting for her to die. The courtroom was silent. Several elderly spectators wiped tears. Judge Hoffman's face was stone. "Mr. Wellington, I've been on this bench for 20 years. This is one of the most egregious cases of elder abuse I've encountered. Your client systematically isolated, humiliated, and attempted to rob his own mother. Your Honor, I'm not finished. The evidence is overwhelming. Unless you have something substantial to counter these recordings, this case will proceed to trial." She looked at Brett. "Mr. Thompson, you're fortunate your mother showed more mercy than you deserved by not pressing attempted murder charges for the psychological torture you inflicted." Brett finally looked at me then, and for just a moment I saw fear in his eyes. Good. Jessica took the stand 2 days later for the prosecution. She'd traded her designer clothes for a simple gray suit, her face bare of makeup. She looked younger, more vulnerable. "Mrs. Thompson, excuse me, Ms. Chen, you're reverting to your maiden name?" Ada Chen asked. "Yes, the divorce will be final next month. Please tell the court about your involvement in the plan to defraud Miranda Thompson." Jessica's voice was steady. "Brett started talking about it 6 months after Robert died. He said his mother was getting confused, that it would be better if we managed her assets." "Did you believe she was confused?" "No." Jessica looked at me. "Miranda was grieving but completely lucid. I knew that. Yet you participated? Brett convinced me we deserved the house, that we were young, starting a family, and Miranda didn't need such a big space." Her voice cracked. "I wanted a baby so badly. Brett said the stress of finances was preventing conception. If we just had the house—" "Tell us about moving Mrs. Thompson to the garage." Jessica described it all. The gradual displacement, the forged documents, the plan with Sunset Manor. She produced emails, texts, even recordings she'd made of Brett practicing my signature. Wellington cross-examined aggressively. "You were equally guilty, weren't you? This was as much your idea as Brett's?" "No, I was wrong to participate, but Brett orchestrated everything. I have emails proving he started this before he even told me." "You're just trying to save yourself." "I'm trying to tell the truth." Jessica's composure cracked. "I lost everything because of this. My marriage, my reputation, any chance of the family I wanted. But Miranda lost more. She lost her son." Wellington pressed harder, but Jessica held firm. When she mentioned Brett's affair with Ashley, his pregnant mistress, the jury visibly recoiled from Brett. As Jessica left the stand, she stopped beside me. "I'm moving to Seattle next week, starting over. I hope you can forgive me someday." "I already have," I said, and meant it. "Go build a better life." After Jessica's devastating testimony and Dorothy's video evidence, Wellington requested a meeting. Sarah and I sat across from Brett and his lawyer in a small conference room. Brett wouldn't look at me. Up close, I could see he'd aged years in weeks. The confident executive was gone, replaced by a desperate man. "My client is willing to plead guilty to reduced charges," Wellington began. "Simple fraud, no elder abuse enhancement, 2 years probation, community service." "Absolutely not," Sarah interrupted. "He tortured this woman for months. The minimum we'll accept is the full elder abuse charge with jail time." "That's a felony. It'll destroy his career." "He destroyed his own career," Ada Chen said, entering the room. "I'm offering 3 years, 1 in custody, 2 supervised release, full restitution plus damages, permanent restraining order, and he forfeits all inheritance rights." Brett's head snapped up. "That's everything!" "You tried to steal everything from your mother," Chen replied coldly. "This is mercy." Wellington whispered urgently to Brett. I could see the calculation in my son's eyes: risk trial and face 10 years, or take the deal. "Mrs. Thompson," Wellington addressed me directly, "surely you don't want to see your son in prison. He's about to become a father." "He became a father 35 years ago," I said quietly. "He forgot that responsibility the moment he dragged my furniture to the garage." Brett finally spoke, his voice rough. "You'd really send me to prison?" "I'm not sending you anywhere. Your choices are." "Mom, please, I'm sorry. I was desperate. The gambling debts, the pressure. You had 8 months to stop. 8 months while I slept next to garbage cans. Every morning, you could have chosen differently." Brett's face crumpled. For a moment he looked like the boy who'd once cried in my arms over scraped knees. But that boy was gone. "We'll take the deal," Wellington said quietly. Chen pushed the papers across. As Brett signed his confession, his hand shook. The last page required him to acknowledge the recordings as accurate and admissible. He signed that too, sealing his fate with his own hand. The sentencing hearing came 2 weeks later. The courtroom was packed again. The story had become a cautionary tale about elder abuse. Judge Hoffman reviewed the plea agreement with surgical precision. "Mr. Thompson, you've pled guilty to felony elder abuse, fraud, and forgery. The agreement calls for 3 years, 1 incarcerated, 2 supervised release. Is this your understanding?" "Yes, Your Honor." Brett's voice was barely audible. "Speak up, Mr. Thompson." "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Hoffman looked at me. "Mrs. Thompson, would you like to make a victim impact statement?" I stood, my prepared notes trembling in my hands, but when I spoke, my voice was clear. "Your Honor, Brett was 12 when I married his father. I raised him as my own. I attended every game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. When he graduated from college, I cried with pride. When he married Jessica, I welcomed her as a daughter. The man standing here systematically destroyed my life after my husband's death. He isolated me, humiliated me, and tried to steal my home. But worse than that, he betrayed the sacred trust between parent and child. I don't need his apology. I need him to understand that actions have consequences. I hope his time in custody helps him find the boy I once knew, the one who had empathy and love in his heart. I also hope this case serves as a warning. Elder abuse is not a family matter to be handled quietly. It's a crime that deserves prosecution." Judge Hoffman nodded. "Mr. Thompson, do you have anything to say?" Brett stood. I'm sorry. I lost my way. The gambling debts, the pressure to succeed, the fear of failure. I let it all corrupt me. Mom, I'm sorry." "Your apology is noted," Judge Hoffman said, "but it doesn't erase your actions. I hereby sentence you to 3 years as agreed with the following additions. You will pay $500,000 in restitution, attend gambling addiction counseling, and have no contact with your mother for 10 years unless she initiates it." The gavel fell. Officers moved toward Brett. "Mom," he called as they cuffed him, "will you ever forgive me?" "Maybe someday," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." They led him away, and I never looked back. The house felt different with Brett's shadow lifted from it. Michael's crew had worked miracles, not just moving me back to the master bedroom, but repairing 8 months of neglect. The garage was restored, holding only Robert's tools and our Christmas decorations again. I stood in the bedroom, hanging Robert's portrait back above the dresser. Jessica had hidden it in the attic, but everything was returning to its rightful place. "Welcome home," Dorothy said from the doorway, carrying fresh flowers. "These are for you." "You've done enough, Dorothy." "Nonsense. Neighbors look after each other. That's what we forgot, and I won't forget again." Sarah arrived with the paperwork confirming the house was fully in my name, all liens removed, all fraudulent documents voided. "It's ironclad now. No one can take this from you again." I walked through each room, reclaiming my space. In the kitchen, I threw away Jessica's modern gadgets and brought back my cast-iron pans. In the living room, I rehung the family photos Brett had boxed up, though I left his photos in storage. Not destroyed, just set aside until I could look at them without pain. The dining room table, site of so many recordings, got a new centerpiece. The decorative turkey went into the trash. In its place, a simple vase Robert had made in a pottery class we'd taken together. That evening, I cooked dinner for myself for the first time in months. Simple soup and bread, eaten in peaceful silence at my kitchen table. No one to serve but myself. No criticism. No demands. The doorbell rang. Aunt Linda with a casserole, then Uncle Paul with wine, then the cousins with dessert. Soon, my kitchen filled with family who'd promised to never leave me isolated again. "This is still your house," Linda said firmly, "but you're not alone in it anymore." We ate together, laughed together, and slowly began healing together. The house that had been my prison was becoming my home again, filled with people who'd learned the hard cost of looking away. Jessica called from Seattle 3 months later. Her voice sounded different, lighter, freed from Brett's influence. "I wanted you to know I'm in therapy," she said, "working through how I let myself become someone who could hurt you like that." "How are you managing?" "I'm teaching yoga, if you can believe it, and volunteering at a women's shelter, trying to balance the scales somehow." We talked for an hour. She told me about her small apartment with a view of the mountains, her new friends who knew nothing of her past, her plans to eventually adopt as a single mother. "I learned something," she said before hanging up. "Brett never wanted children. He had a vasectomy years ago without telling me. All those fertility treatments I put myself through." My heart broke for her all over again. Another layer of Brett's cruelty revealed. Ashley brought the baby to meet me when he was 3 weeks old. James Robert Martinez. She'd given him Robert's name as a middle name, a gesture that brought tears to my eyes. "He looks like Brett," Ashley said apologetically. "He looks like himself," I corrected, holding my grandson for the first time. A fresh start. We worked out a schedule. Ashley would bring James twice a week. I'd babysit when she returned to work. Brett's parents had rejected her completely, but I refused to punish this innocent child for his father's sins. "Jessica sends her best," Ashley mentioned during one visit. "We've been talking." "You have?" "She's been helpful, actually, understanding what Brett was capable of, how he operated. It's helped me heal." 2 women Brett had betrayed, finding solidarity in survival. There was something poetic in that. James gurgled in my arms, tiny fingers wrapping around mine. A new generation, a chance to do better. I'd failed with Brett somehow, but perhaps I could help raise James to be the man his father should have been. Sarah helped me establish the Thompson Family Trust, an ironclad legal structure protecting my assets while I lived and directing them after I died. "No one can contest this," she assured me. "Not Brett, not any future spouse, no one." The house would go to James when he turned 25, with strict conditions. He had to graduate college and have no criminal record. If he didn't meet the requirements, it would be sold and the proceeds donated to the Elder Justice Foundation. "What about Brett?" Sarah asked carefully. "He's still your son." "I'm leaving him something." I pulled out Robert's watch, the one Brett had always admired. This, and a letter. The letter was simple. "I loved the boy you were. I mourn the man you became. This watch was your father's. May it remind you that time can heal, but only if you use it wisely." I also set aside funds for Ashley, not a fortune, but enough to ensure James had opportunities. And surprisingly, a small amount for Jessica, tagged for the pursuit of motherhood, however that manifests. "You're more generous than they deserve," Sarah observed. "Maybe, but hatred is heavy, and I'm tired of carrying weight that isn't mine." We filed the trust documents that afternoon. Everything was protected now, not just from Brett, but from my own potential vulnerability as I aged. If I ever did develop confusion or dementia, professional trustees would step in, not family who might exploit me. "It's sad that it's necessary," Sarah said. "It's realistic," I corrected. "And reality is what protects us." The speaking invitation came 6 months after Brett's sentencing. The Elder Justice Foundation wanted me to share my story at their annual conference. "I'm not a public speaker," I protested to Sarah. "You're a survivor with evidence. That's more powerful than any prepared speech." So I stood before 300 people and told them about the garage, the recordings, the turkey centerpiece that hid the device that saved me. I showed them how to document, how to protect themselves, how to recognize the signs. "The hardest part," I said, "is accepting that someone you love is capable of hurting you. But love without boundaries is just vulnerability waiting to be exploited." The response was overwhelming. Seniors approached with their own stories. Adult children asked how to support their parents without controlling them. Lawyers wanted copies of my documentation methods. I became, accidentally, an advocate. speaking at senior centers, community colleges, even police training sessions, always with the same message. Document everything. Trust but verify. And never be ashamed to protect yourself, even from family, especially from family. Brett would be released in 9 months. Part of me hoped he'd learned something. Most of me knew better, but that was his journey now, not mine. Mine was here, in my reclaimed home, with my grandson, my chosen family, and my hard-won freedom. Thank you for listening to my story. If you or someone you know is facing elder abuse, please seek help. You're not alone. Document everything, find allies, and know your rights. Please subscribe if this story touched you, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and your life. Stay strong.